Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the Pillars of Freedom podcast, where every week I am bringing you the mindset and the methods to help you realize your personal vision of freedom through a business of your own. I am your host, Cody James Aiken, and I am so glad you are joining me today in my journey of building a lifestyle business. Because if you have ever wondered what it is actually going to take to build a lifestyle business, unlock the 3 pillars of lifestyle freedom, and actually live your best life, you are in the right place. So stick around and take notes from today's guests as they share their discoveries in realizing their own personal vision of freedom. Welcome to the podcast. Well, hello, friends of the Pillars of Freedom podcast. This is your friend Cody, host, and joining me today is a special friend I made at Funnel Hacking Live. His name is Will Myers. He is the founder of Myers Impact, and Will has been in the health and fitness field for the last 15 years, starting as a personal trainer and licensed massage therapist. This combination of holistic living techniques, or holistic techniques in general, gave him the unique ability to connect with athletes of every sport, professionals from every industry, and people of all different age groups. You want to talk about a guy who can work with anybody? It's Will. Starting in a commercial gym, he moved on to a home gym, which turned into a small office, and then up and down the roller coaster trying to find his business home. In recent years, he moved his business online due to the challenging environment of shutdowns, which actually was a blessing in disguise. Oftentimes, that's what we see, right? It's like a major shutdown. It can be a big thing, but as we look back in hindsight, we're like, wow, I'm glad that kind of happened. This gave Will the opportunity to connect with so many more people, including new mentors and coaches to help him take to the next level in his coaching business. He is currently focused on building his online presence and building a network of like-minded pros. And today, what I'm excited about getting into with Will is the power of consistency and the effectiveness of holistic living practices. Will, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Cody, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Cool. Very cool. Now, so I just gave the audience this amazing intro. Can you kind of walk us through some of your journey, like how you got started in business and what is it that you do today?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I started out, I was a young athlete. So, I was playing soccer for years, and the whole thing that got me into rehab was I actually developed something called Osgood-Schlatter's in my knees. And so basically I was developing my leg muscles so much that every time my body was trying to go through a growth spurt, I was basically like pulling and tearing on those tendons and ligaments that were protecting my knee. And I wasn't stretching. I didn't know anything about massage therapy or foam rolling or anything like that. We just didn't go over it. It was more of just like do a couple warm-ups down the field, bring it back, go home, and sit around. And then my father was a drill sergeant in the Army, so he created all these things in the backyard for me to constantly be practicing. So it was just effort all the time, but no recovery. And so I developed, so what Osgood-Schlatter is it actually is when your patellar tendon actually kind of swells up a little bit to protect itself because it's being torn so much. So every growth spurt, I had to sit out, for a week or so, ice in my knees, just didn't know what was going on. Now I'm so well versed on it, but at the time we had no idea. So, I just kind of dealt with it, but then I still have these, knots on my knees that I'll have for the rest of my life. And if I don't do my proper daily therapy, I'll actually have pain. Like people talk about, they can feel a storm coming. Is real, I can actually feel that change and pressure. So it started first, I kind of had to learn how to fix that up because it got to a point where it was just so bad. So I started going to physical therapists finally, and they still weren't really trying to release the tension. It was more about like building other muscles to help take tension off of the joint, which I do completely understand that philosophy. But what I really needed was to get in there and break down that tissue. So, I ended up meeting a massage therapist, so a friend of my mother's, and she worked on me for a little bit and just I guess she kind of like started that spark, and so I started getting into more about physical therapy, personal training. I started as a personal trainer, but then in the gym I was at, there was also a physical therapy place. And so I just started hanging out with them all the time, ended up getting myself an internship there and I learned how to dial everything back. It's like the whole slow down to speed up thing. They weren't necessarily teaching the techniques yet because, if anyone's listening and has heard of foam rollers and the therapy balls and all that stuff wasn't out yet. So it's not that I was learning those techniques, but I was really learning anatomy. And that just led me into personal training and physical therapy. And one of my clients eventually was like, you should probably become a massage therapist or at least check it out. And I remember I was scrolling on Facebook and their ad popped up. It was like, become a massage therapist in 8 months or something like that. So I went to the school just to check it out. I left there enrolled and I was starting up the next month. So that kind of led the physical therapy and the massage and that part of my life. And things just went crazy from there. And then when I was 19, this was kind of before that as well. I had met some people in the MLM marketing world and got myself involved in one of those companies. It was funny. I was working at an Outback Steakhouse, a restaurant. I don't know if you know their uniforms. It's like bright colors covered in pins. And some guy was sitting at my table and he was like, "Hey man, you looking for ways to make extra money?" And I remember saying to him, I was like, "Dude, look at me. Like, of course I am. Like absolutely. What you got, And like, it just developed this awesome friendship. And that lasted for about 4.5 years. And I'll say, I never really made like a ton of money off of it. We were like selling health products and stuff like that and skincare products. But what I learned, I got around people who were making good money. And I think the thing I noticed the most was how the men were treating their wives and how they were all talking about like, I want to bring her home from work so that she can take care of the kids. And eventually I'll bring myself home from work. And it was all this stuff of like people in their like 30s talking about retirement, and I'd never heard anything like that. Both my parents were business owners. So I never saw them go to a job, but I also never saw them in a position of dramatic abundance, so they were always just hustling, which instilled a lot in me. But then when I got around these people, I just started realizing like, okay, there's more available. Like I don't have to be some superstar athlete in order to make all this crazy money. I can actually do something else that's helping people. And, with my issues with my knees and stuff like that, I actually got to do a little bit of training with the Baltimore Blast when I was living in Maryland, soccer team up there. And I remember one of the coaches was like, you could probably play professionally for 3 or 4 years, but then you'll probably never walk again. And so I didn't care, but my mom got involved. She was just like, like take a different route, like there's just got to be something else. And so I played here and there and, we never really did travel or anything like that because it was extra income, it cost extra money. So eventually I just kind of phased out of it, but was still always exercising. So in this MLM I was in, I focused all on the health products and it just got me around some incredible people. I learned so much about macronutrients and all the stuff what the body does to process all of that stuff. So it's funny how it's like successes and failures. And like in the end, now that I look back on it, it's like all of that stuff pieced together has turned me into what I am today. And I would never in any way say that MLM wasn't successful for me because of what I learned. Like I became an entrepreneur, like I was raised by 2 entrepreneurs, but I thought I was like, I'm just going to be an athlete or, I guess that's really I never really thought like, what could I do as a business owner? And that being around those people really showed me, I was like, man, they're just like me, like they got people doing the presentations. And I was like, I can't wait to do that. It was like, it was like 9 success habits or something that we talked about a lot. And I was just so excited to just get to a level where I could get up on stage and do that. And it got to that and it grew even further and more. The team eventually did kind of fall apart. So I did end up going my separate ways, but I never, I still have a ton of the books. I still have a ton of the tapes. So I never lost that mindset of being an entrepreneur and never wanting to work for someone again. So it just then snowballed into, of course, becoming a personal trainer, which I think when you're working in gyms and stuff like that, it's a really good way to feel what it's like to be an entrepreneur. But at the same time, it's like what I call it, skydiving or like parasailing, where like you can go out there with the parachute on your own, or you can do the one where you're strapped to somebody, and it was kind of like that. Like, it's like you got this big club where everybody's coming there for fitness. So those were the people I was looking for, so it did give me a little bit of a parachute, but then the real success came from when I went on my own and I just had to make it happen. And the success did not come fast. It was like, it took a lot of failures, a lot of broke nights, a lot of challenges where things are getting cut off and such. And my parents were never, because they were entrepreneurs and because they built theirs from scratch, they were never like, here's $1,000, you'll be fine. It was never anything like that. Like, I got some money for holidays and stuff like that. But they had really instilled in me. I just didn't want to ask them, like I had met so many people who were like retiring their wives and bringing their parents home to live with them instead of a nursing home and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, I can make this happen. And so, never like tried to do any loans or anything like that. It was more of just like, I'll make it work. And I remember just finding myself always investing money back into the business. It was always like, I'm making a little bit, but now I got to put it back in, because it's what everybody was doing. Everyone that was making more than me, doing better than me, more successful, they were always talking about reinvest. And I guess I was in a position where I couldn't necessarily invest in stocks and stuff like that because I hadn't learned that stuff yet. So I just invested in myself by education, when I was in that business, products and stuff to give out and stuff. But now in the position I'm in now, it's all about education. The amount that I will invest in a course or a direct coaching, I see it 100% come back. And a lot of times, it'll come back the next week, the next day, the next month financially. But sometimes it takes time, but it's like over time, all these things come together and it's made a dramatic difference. And so now all I do, I work online now. I basically network and focus on meeting as many people through the internet, through the web. And like the intro had said, all the shutdowns is what started that. And I didn't have a choice. I was personal trainer, massage therapist. I was teaching group fitness. I was doing a youth soccer league, and all of it got shut down on a Friday. Like they were just like, we're closing the state, this, and this. All my jobs were like right in front of people and or groups, definitely more than 10. So they shut it all down. And I didn't really have a choice. I was like, okay. So I remember like Friday night, I went to all the gyms and got my equipment. And then Saturday, I was online just trying to figure out, all right, how do I do this? What are people using to broadcast? What type of sound equipment are they using? What type of space do I need? Like, it just Saturday, Sunday, and all of a sudden Monday, I was completely online. And there was no like doubt. It wasn't like, oh man, what am I going to do? Like, it was like, how am I going to do it? And it's amazing what happened and what transpired over the next 2 years to get me to this point here. It all came down to the people I was meeting, and I just had to put myself out there. And actually where we met was a crazy blessing in disguise. How I even got there, and just like being around people like that, people like yourself and people that were up on stage, and I just was like, wow, it reminded me of the MLM back in the day because I was surrounded by a bunch of people. But the crazy thing is, there at the place we were at, everybody in the room was doing well. I remember when I went to the previous one, there was like 10 people up on stage that were actually doing well. Everybody else was just grinding it out, trying to figure it out. And which is kind of the same with the room we went to, but it was like there were just way more people excited because not only were they doing what they loved, but they were actually making money, and so they had the option to do a lot of stuff that people are working so hard for. I don't want to go too long on it, but it's been a crazy ride. Just learning, again, like you said, consistency. If I had kind of given up and been bouncing around, I would have never really put enough time into anything. It just, everything was health and fitness centered. It was just trying to find my vehicle to get me out to the world, I guess you could say, you know.
Yeah, that sounds like a very fair estimation where it's just like you having come from a unique background where it's like athletics was your focus. And then
Yeah.
due to like literally a personal pain point, like you
Yeah.
start getting on the path to, finding out, okay, what is it that I want to do? And then you
Right.
go on another journey of like, okay, well, in order to support myself, you get a job, one that I'm sure you didn't want to work at Outback, but it was available, right?
Right. Yeah.
And from there, it sounds like, you kept yourself open to opportunities. And
Right.
especially when you talked about like, getting involved in the MLM, because I mean, you and I, we talked about this, we were in the same group
Yeah.
and, in the same
Yeah.
company, right? And it sounded like when you got started, like business ownership and entrepreneurship was not like top of mind, but it was an opportunity. And
Yeah. Yeah.
you started like, as you associated and you got around other like, business owners and entrepreneurs, you found like, well, and especially from like your parents' background, both of them being entrepreneurs, they're like, oh, I see the bigger picture here. And you start to
Right.
develop this new really mindset. And then you get into, physical training, massage therapist, and you see it's like, okay, I've learned to invest in myself, associate with like-minded people, and grow in my craft, right? And then the challenge hit, everything shuts down. And one of my favorite things that you mentioned was that you didn't ask yourself, what am I going to do next? But how am I going to get it done? As if like there was no choice but to carry on, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. At that point, I had 25 to 26 different jobs. Like I said, in that MLM, I wasn't that successful financially. So, and the business model at the time was build your personal circle and get as many people trying stuff as possible. And I was a broke college student, so I never got out of that because I was literally any money I was making, I was putting it into these products and just giving it away to people that didn't even really care because I still hadn't learned I didn't know who my customers were. Like I was just giving it to friends. I was giving products to other broke people, like other student friends that I knew. So of course they weren't going to buy and I remember I was like going to like soccer games and putting up a tent and trying to sell drinks and stuff like this. Like it just was like I needed to go through it for sure to learn that I don't want to do that again. It's way better to get some coaching from someone who can help you with where you're at the time. But yeah, I had like so many. I mean, it didn't stop at Outback. 7 or 8 more restaurants, and I remember I was like, let me get out of this restaurant world and get like a 9 to 5 so I can focus in the evening on my business. So I started working at this bank. Then all of a sudden they put us in a grocery store and the hours became like 10 a.m. to like 10 p.m. I was just like, this is not what I was looking for. So I did that for a little bit and I literally kept bouncing around. It was just like, if it doesn't work with what I'm trying to do with my business, then I'm not going to do it. And in that business I was a part of 2 groups. I had part of my upline so I was in Maryland. Part of my upline was up in Pennsylvania and another part of it was down in Virginia. And so I was just driving. It was either an hour and a half one way or an hour and a half the other way, tons of traffic. And I think one of the blessings of that was the time, even though I hated traffic and it messed with my flexibility and everything, I was listening to tapes. So one thing I had gotten from being a part of that group was, they had just had tons of CDs and tapes and just people talking about mindset. And so just every single day, that's what I was listening to, and there were times we did something where we were contacting people. There were times I would drive an hour and a half just to get to the area, just to go meet people. And it was called cold contacting. And this is probably what makes me so good at speaking to random people now, like people I've never met before. I can hold crazy conversations because literally what we would do, man, we would go to gas stations, or we would be going to, again, not as a group, but I would go to a gas station and with no money in my account. And I would see somebody with a nice car or a sharp guy, and I would just pull up, put the thing in my car. And I knew I had like 2 minutes before it started beeping because I didn't put my card in it, you know? And so I would just, I would see the car. I would go up, be like, you know, hey man, this is a nice car. And I've been thinking about upgrading my car. Like, how's the mileage? You know? And in the beginning, it didn't come out that smooth. Like I was nervous, heart beating like crazy. Like there were times I'd be holding my phone with my mentor on it so that he could listen to how I was talking. And that made me even more nervous. Like it was crazy, man. And, but I eventually learned how to just have a simple conversation. You know, I definitely went at it as, oh, sharp dude, let me try to get his number so I can get him in the business. And it never worked like that. But once I finally pulled back and I just was like, today I want to have 10 conversations, you know, without trying to get a number or anything. Just let me just talk to these people. It started getting so much better, you know, and like a thought just popped in my mind. I was in a department store contacting and I was talking to this couple and security came up to me and was just like, you know, hey man, we don't do any soliciting in here, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm just having a conversation. He was like, I've seen you do it with like 8 people. I'm holding the same product that I was buying. Man, like he's like, come on, man, nah, roll out. And so I kind of had to go through it. It was embarrassing, frustrating, you know, but now I think about FHL and it's like, I like every single, I was able to just pull random topics out. Like we were just having great conversations. I mean, when we met, it was definitely at the end of a session. So it was in the evening where most people were heading home, but there were people in the hallway talking. And I remember thinking is like, I'm here to network. So I'm going to be out here until I can't find anybody out here, until like the staff is cleaning up. Maybe I'll even talk to them. And it was like, and still to this day, I mean, we're talking today and, you know, I've been on a couple others like this, also had some phone calls. I've bought a couple courses from people that I met there. I've even sold a couple courses to people I met there. Like networking has become the magic sauce, you know, and I can really thank those initial things, those initial companies and things I was around. It just dramatically took my marketing and my communication skills through the roof. And then the only thing I had to work on was just confidence, you know, and just being confident that I had something that would help the person versus all this other stuff, people just trying to sell, you know, and once I started realizing like knowing me is going to help this person because of the effort I'm going to put in. And once I started like really, truly believing that, it was so easy to talk to people, you know, it was like, you know, whether we connect or not, like I know if we connect and I share what I've pounded into my brain, it's going to help this person. And I think that a lot of people should think about that as well when it comes to networking and talking to people, because if what you're bringing to someone truly can help them, there's no reason, no matter what their status is, car they're driving, at the gas station when you have no money and you put in the pump in your car. Like there was times where I would hear the thing beeping and I'd be like, I'd just keep talking. And like eventually you realize like, dude, like you're not even pumping your gas, you know? But then I had to go through it, man. I had to like just learn, you know, and I'll always be grateful from that group for that specifically, just putting me out of my comfort zone and giving me the opportunity to learn how to talk to people, you know?
Yes, I know. And what the audience doesn't see and hear is that when Will's talking, I've got my mic muted. And if you're watching this on YouTube, also you'll see his screen highlighted and not mine. But the whole time Will is sharing this, I'm like busting up laughing because being in the same company with the same 9 core steps and going through the same process, I'm laughing because it's so true. And putting yourself out of your comfort zone to go and make those contacts. And I would say, Will, like as I start and build my business now, I apply a very like almost identical framework to like the 9 core steps, where it's like grow your income, grow yourself, and grow your team.
Yeah.
And just finding out simple frameworks where it's like, this works for me now, but it's because I learned it being forged in fire, going through those tough experiences. Just like you mentioned, going cold contacting, grocery stores. I would do the same thing, man. I'd grab a cart,
Yeah.
I'd go, and I'd walk the same paths. And I was like, I walked the entire store at like a Walmart, 11:30 at night. I'll
Yeah.
talk to two people. I'll walk the entire store, and all I'm going to buy are like 3 bananas and a jar of peanut butter, right? But I went
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
the dairy section, the dog food, all of that. But
Yeah.
it was because I was really being trained, to put myself out of my comfort zone, even though I didn't see the results then. I couldn't have predicted how much it impacts me today, where I go out
Right.
and just like we were networking at FHL, where it's just like,
Yeah.
most people are going, leaving the event, 7:30, 8 o'clock. But us
Mhm.
knowing the value of those experiences, we're like, we can be out here all night because all we need to know is that there's one person out there that literally, when we bridge that, make that bridge with them, the rest is just going to be, an avalanche of good results. And it's
Right.
just that mindset of like, I'm only looking for 6. I just need 6 good nights or whatever that looks like.
Right. Yeah.
So I think this is a great springboard for like the power of consistency, because you said you built that business for what, 4.5 years, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So as you saw yourself like transitioning out of MLM and into your own business, personal trainer, massage therapist, where did the consistency come in? Because I know a lot of listeners, as they listen, they're looking for the mindset and the methods, to be able to build their lifestyle business. And they know, I need to be consistent, but sometimes just having another perspective on, okay, what does this actually look like? And I know a lot of people are in the health and fitness space right now wondering, okay, as I build my business, I'm just starting out from ground zero. What is it that I need to be consistent with? Do you mind sharing a little bit of your perspective on how you bridge that gap going from MLM to personal trainer and applying yourself consistently?
Definitely. Yeah. The main thing I see across the board was either reading or listening to tapes, because it put me in a, when you're reading, you're processing everything. And when you're listening to a tape, it's very easy to relate it to yourself because you're just sitting there daydreaming, basically. And that was the key for me. I think what I learned in the MLM was to find someone who's where you want to be in life, either whether it be physically, financially, spiritually, emotionally, whatever it is, but learning how to be a student the whole time. And even though I'm a teacher and have been for so many years, the more I was a student, the more I dramatically like just kept growing. And I think that people really loved that I was a student because I was their teacher. And it was almost as if like, they couldn't expect to learn from me if I wasn't still learning from someone else. And so education was the key for consistency for me, because it was like I always learned something new and a new way to apply. So it wasn't like I was just trying to drum out the same repetitive habits that in reality were keeping me broke. It was always like, how can I make this adjustment? How can I change? How can I do this? And so then when I got into the health and fitness field as an instructor and teacher, it was the same exact thing, because every year they were coming out with a new stretch, or they found a new ligament in the knee, or now there's this bone, or now there's just all this new stuff. And there were so many people also getting into the industry that some people were worried about it becoming saturated and such like that. And even nowadays, if anyone's trying to get into the health and fitness field, in reality, you can get certified in some things in like an hour. You can pay $300-400, get a certification, take the test, and all of a sudden you're nationally certified. So, that then brings a ton of people with no experience into the industry, or at least the experience maybe have just worked for them. And so I learned like, okay, there's going to be a ton of people coming into the industry. So I'm going to need to somehow raise the bar and just completely distance myself from them, because, I'm not going to be able to change it. And even for a while, I actually taught a 2-day certification that certified people into the industry. And it was great. I loved it. I loved working with beginners. And, it's like the difference between teaching a bunch of people group fitness or teaching a bunch of trainers. The big difference is the questions that came back, because the questions that came back made me think. And also at the same time, it was questions that not only made me think, but like these people really wanted the answer. It's not like someone was like, show me how to do a push-up. It was like people asking me like, well, what are the muscles that compound together to do a push-up? And what is the issue if somebody has a bad elbow? How do we then still work those muscles? Like it was great because it got me thinking and really using all of my experience. And so I think the biggest thing with consistency there was putting myself around people that would challenge me and teach me at the same time, and that has been consistent the whole way through, whether it came from being a young kid playing soccer or even watching my parents as business owners, or then getting into the marketing world and such like that. Even as an employee, if I was working at Outback, I was being the best in there, because I was just like, doesn't matter what it is, I'm just going to do the best at it. And then, I would go into gyms and be top sales easily, and it was like, because I was like, all right, I'm going to be in here. I'm going to be the best in here so I can get around the right people. And then many times promotions came around, which got me around to more people as well. But the biggest thing was just being a student. And it just made me want to keep getting better, because I kept putting myself in front of people who knew more than me. And I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to be this best version of myself in this body that I'm given, this mind that I have, I'm going to have to learn what they know. And then I'm going to have to find who they learned it from and then learn what they know. And it was just, I think that really helped me remain consistent, because it was like, I just knew there was always more information, which meant there was always more people I could help. And for those listening, that meant I could charge more, and like, it was like, if you are constantly charging very low for a product, you're going to have to sell a ton of that to make any type of income. So the way that you fix that without exhausting yourself, adding another 8 hours to your shift, is you learn how to charge more per transaction. And I didn't want to become like I was trying to scam people or something like that. So I was like, all right, I just need to be literally the best version possible. So that way, when people do invest, they think to themselves, I will always love people saying like, that was so worth it and I would do it again, versus someone being like, like, it was expensive and, I feel like I got what it was worth, or someone being like, that was just expensive and not worth it at all. I love hearing back people thinking like, whatever the investment was, they're just like, wow, I got 10 times that worth of information. But I needed to learn that stuff. I couldn't, like, you wouldn't want to learn from me if every single time I was pulling up stuff on Google to try and answer questions. Like, yes, that's available to us, but there's a difference when you have a question and somebody answers you with confidence and right away, and they know the answer because they've gone through trial and error. It saves a ton of time. It's such the importance of getting a coach, someone that's been down the path before, So.
Yes. Yeah, I love it. And I think, dude, that was packed with so many gems. That's amazing.
Oh yeah.
I think
Good.
the idea of being like the eternal student, and knowing that it's like, okay, from a macro like market perspective, one, I need to differentiate myself from these people who, like, for example, like you mentioned, the people who could become certified in an hour. It's like,
Right.
for someone who's walking into a gym, they see two people, they're both certified. On the surface, how can you tell, who is going to add more value to you if you're coming in, based on, physical training, massage therapy, stuff like that. And for you,
Right.
it was like, putting yourself in front of people who knew more than you, and in that association, finding out it's like, okay, as I invest in learning more, I can provide more value, and I can then, charge more. And, it seems like along the way you're optimizing, not only the results you can get for your clients, but the results you can get for yourself. And just
Right.
so people have like a bit of context now, like, you're a high ticket, fitness coach, aren't you?
Yep.
Like, can
Correct.
you give people a snapshot of like, what is your business today, and like a ballpark of like who you're working with, like, for example, Dan Henry.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned that. So once I became a high level coach, I learned that I needed high level clients, because fitness is difficult to stay consistent to. So I needed to find people with the mindset of make it happen no matter what. And I think that group is entrepreneurs. And people who are really goal driven. And so for me, I just needed to get to that group of people because I just, when I met, and even Dan Henry himself, when I started working with him, his whole thing was he likes to teach high ticket. He's like, you could sell a certain amount, if you're trying to make $10,000, you can sell $10,000 products. You could sell two $5,000 products or one $10,000 product. Of course, profit margins in people's different industries change and such. But when I realized that, I was like, okay, so I need to put together a program or a package that, one, I can charge a certain amount for, but then also, two, I can create such a reaction, such a testimony that just people watching a testimony is going to get them interested, and so I just had to be really confident with my work. And so what I did was I just packaged, it really is the whole holistic thing. So I packaged a ton of personal training information, a ton of manual therapy information from massage, because mainly when I was doing massage. So think about, like, I would work with a client, their muscles would get sore, and then they would call me for a massage. I would fix that. And then I would teach them the techniques to do on their own, because, getting a massage, if a massage is $100, $80 to $100, whatever it is, there's only a certain percentage of people that can do that after every single workout. And you go to like train martial arts in certain countries, all the fighters get massaged right after their training because of the importance of releasing the tension in the muscles and helping the joints, and then coming back stronger the next day. So when I was teaching all that stuff, how to, like, here, I do your session here, the next 3 days, I want you to do this. I did it so much that I started to learn there's a lot of stuff that fits under the same umbrella. A lot of injuries, a lot of imbalances, a lot of joint issues that can all be taken care of through just a number of techniques. And so what I did was, my magic was being in person, but when that was taken away, I didn't have the choice. It was like, all right, well, I can't even open my massage office. So remember when I taught you how to do this, this, and this with your foam roller and therapy ball? Now I need you to do this 3 days a week. And I need you to do this 3 days a week. And I just, before I even met Dan, before I even went high ticket, I realized I was already creating this program for people. And the magic for me was just packaging it all up. And it was a serious investment in time. But what I did, it was just a massive download of all the years of information into a scalable product. That was the big thing. Like, I was hearing the word scale. And I don't think you can really be high ticket until you understand the word scaling. And it gets to a point whereas, like, there should be a digital version of yourself somewhere marketing for you while you're sleeping. And if it's a product that you can do that with, then you can scale that product. I can't scale one-on-one in-person training. I only have so many hours in a day. However, if I take the first 3 to 6 months of fundamental information that really everybody needs, package it up, put it into a schedule, put it into a coaching program of a sort, now I can just focus on selling these. And I can just focus on how I'm meeting people online and such. And then, I still do weekly coaching calls, and I use different apps that have people give them connection to me daily. But as far as so the best example, if somebody in here is a personal trainer watching, the question about nutrition comes up all the time. And you can take one of your PT sessions, instead of workout, just talk nutrition for an entire hour. The problem is when that person leaves, the conversation's over. So the chance that they're going to even remember that type of stuff 3 months from now is, it's very slim. And the amount of times I had to have the same nutrition conversation over and over and over again. And I was just like, and I even remember thinking I should record this or something so people can just watch it, save myself some time. We don't have time. Time is precious. And getting into this system, of course, meeting Dan. And when I had met Dan, I guess I had been online for about a year and a half. And I was already every single class I did, I recorded and I wrote the notes on it and I programmed it all out. So I actually had a year and a half of just programming. And now I couldn't just send it to someone and them have any idea what to do with it, but I just had a ton of information. So I just took weeks, like so much time in just packaging it up and putting it into a step-by-step process. So now, I still do the call, like onboarding calls. I normally do 3 up to 90-minute calls, 3 of them. And I tackle imbalances and like onboarding. Then I tackle nutrition. Then I normally look up online where people can get their body composition readings. I call up that shop, have them come in, and I base everything off of that. And then I can do like my weekly calls and stuff like that for weekly adjustments. But at this point, one of my courses has 44 videos. And so there's like literally week by week, what to watch, what to do. Now that I have so much of my time, I was able to buy my time back. Now that I have so much more freedom, I've put even more stuff in there. So I've got some actual workouts where people can follow me. And like, it just became this massive wealth of information. And the big thing that makes my stuff different is it's not just about fitness. It's or not just about strength training. I bring in the whole massage manual therapy world to it, which opens up to so many more people because there's so many people with back pain, knee pain, shoulder pain, wrist pain. Like all the joints are causing people problems nowadays just because of that sedentary lifestyle. So a major part of my programming is how to reverse those effects before we even get into whether you want to lose weight or build muscle. Like my whole process became a 3-step process. It was first mindset, philosophy, because I learned I can give people gold, but if they don't recognize it and know what to do with it, it's just going to sit there. So first was mindset, then started knocking down nutrition. And of course, that all led right into what their strength would be. But strength we never got to that until their body was fully balanced. If anyone's worked with a trainer and they've pushed you too hard, or maybe something went wrong, or maybe tried to do a workout on their own and got an injury, and I'm in a position where I'm no longer right there with people anymore. So I needed to put all this stuff in place so that there were no injuries. And when injuries do come up, just like it happens in fitness, there's a whole wealth of videos that will be like, okay, you have a knee issue, a joint issue. This is what you do. And so now I'm just so confident to get that thing out to people because I know so much is answered in there. And then they still have access to me on a daily basis. So if whatever they need pops up, I can do it for them. So I actually found myself being way more effective. And I live down here in Florida and I work like physically in person with 2 people. And they're just significant to me. Everyone else I'm working with is online, and we do like this broadcasting to each other and talk to each other. It's like have you ever heard of Voxer? It's like a walkie-talkie type thing. I get those all day long, and it's just I can just answer the question right there, and keep on moving with my day. I don't have to take a half hour to get to the gym, wait for someone to show up. The biggest thing that got me and why 2 things high ticket really changed for me is the first thing is one sale can change your entire situation. If anyone knows what the struggle is like, and I know what it's like, a $5,000 sale versus a $300 sale changes your situation. And you don't have to stress as much because you're not like, all right, a $300 product, I got to find all these people to pay these bills. Or you just have a very effective, again, high ticket price that takes care of all that stuff. So the first thing is like, you could change your situation very quickly, right? And I'll put on there that you're not just charging high just to charge high. Like you're actually fulfilling that. And in reality, you're giving people more value than what they're paying. It just happens to be higher than what you've ever dealt with in the past. So it really does make a difference there. And then also another thing is that I saw when people made that type of investment, they were way more serious. When I was in the gym, I would drive to the gym 30 minutes, 45 minutes sometime, depending on traffic. I know I got 6 people on. By the time I get there, I've got 3 cancellation text messages. So now I'm going to be sitting, waiting, and yes, it's a gym of clients. I guess I could go market, but I'm there every day. They know who I am, Like it ended up being such a waste of time when people would cancel and give no type of notice, nothing, so now my program, like basically you're paying for 6 months up front, basically. So if you need to cancel, okay, cancel, but that's not going to decide whether or not my lights stay on, because before the gym was already taking half of it, and it was like maybe people get like a 10 pack or something, but if they're doing 3 days a week, that's gone in a month. So in reality, it's like I got to get them every month to re-sign on, and also I noticed like they're also only with me 3 days a week. So those other 4 days, they could be doing whatever, which could further out that goal, and if people aren't getting results, why would they keep coming back? So it's like it was constantly just trying to figure it out and get new clients. And I just learned like, yeah, man, I just learned like this is a rat race. This is not what I want to do. Like, the revolving client part, gyms will always have a problem with that. They will always have a problem with that. And so I needed to get people to commit to a certain time frame, because it's not going to happen. Magic's not going to happen in 30 days. Like if you want to transform your business or your life, like you have to invest the time. And so if I was upfront telling people like, look, I'm going to be here for 6 months, you're going to be here for 6 months, then like the up and down that everybody goes through was less daunting, because it's like, look, it's going to happen. We're going to figure it out though. And that's the big thing, is that like I was able to get the money up front. So I was able to take care of myself. Because if anybody watching this, if you've been through like I was, where people are canceling, or all of a sudden December rolls around, this is December now, all of a sudden December rolls around and 10 of your people don't re-sign because they got to buy Christmas gifts. Now all of a sudden, not only are you thinking like, how am I going to get Christmas gifts? Now you're like, well, what about the electric for December? Or like, now I got to figure out rent for Jan. Like, it's just like, it actually got to a point, man, where I took the last 3 Decembers before now I'm doing what I'm doing now. I took off. I just hustled October, September, November, took off in December, just did massage and stuff, but I took all the pressure off because I was like, I know most of y'all are going to leave. And I had to realize like, that's just what's going to happen. And then people, fill back in January and such, but I couldn't let my personal life, my mental health, my ability to take care of myself was way too wrapped up in whether or not someone was going to show up for their session. And it's anyone listening that has been through that, this is probably hitting them to the core, because it's tough, man. It's like you can write out your numbers, but that doesn't mean that's what it's going to be for the month, So the biggest thing High Ticket made, like the biggest thing, was getting that commitment up front, not only financially, but also personally involved. But when I was trying to figure out my life, get my credit together, get all my stuff together, I needed the money. I'm investing the time. I need the money.
Wow, man. Well, talk about a holistic approach, not only to like personal wellness, but also business success. Dude, there's so much there.
Yeah.
As someone who also sells high ticket, I can see like exactly what you mean about that commitment. Where and just to touch on that real quick before we get to like back to this fitness idea that you dropped, this value bomb that I want to make sure people don't miss. When people make that commitment with high dollar up front, it's like they finally take it seriously, and that to me, it's like if you're in a coaching position where it's like your part of your success, I would imagine, is based on the results that you help people get. And it's like, if they're not willing to step up and be accountable, then it's like your perception by the market, how they'll see you. It's like, well, this guy can't get his clients results. Maybe it's not the coach at all. It's the people who are not willing to make that commitment. But like, for example, as you shared in the pre-interview questionnaire, you sent a link to a case study with you and Dan Henry. And I was watching that before we got online here. And I'll tell you what, guys, like, one, product and, service testimonies are incredible. But two, when you actually get to see, it's like, okay, these are people who don't have time to waste or money to, just throw around willy nilly. Like, they need results. And the fact that they would come to you, and give testimony like Dan did, that's testament one to like, okay, high ticket works, get that accountability and commitment from them. You making sure that you're taken care of, because nobody wants to be worrying about the electric, or if you're in summer, the AC down there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
And
It's summer all year round, man.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's like 26 degrees here.
Oh,
But
dude, it's like 87 right now.
wow.
It's hot, man.
Pillars of Freedom podcast. Who wants to buy me a plane ticket to Florida?
Right. Get him down here. We'll do this next one in person, man.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay. And and then go back to this gem that I want to make sure people pick up too. So one thing that like I see in your business and your approach to helping people in coaching, personal training, and massage therapy is your approach to the holistic building of the person's fitness. So you mentioned this, and I want to make sure people don't, just overlook this. But when you mentioned, like, when people come in looking either to lose weight or build, muscle mass, you take it like 2 or 3 steps back and you're like, let's look at your joints. Let's look at your nutrition. Let's look, and, it's kind of like they come, say, hey, I want you to fix my house. I want you to build it up and make it look nice. And you're like, okay, well, let's start digging and looking at the foundation. Let's tear some drywall off and actually see how well these joints, all the trusses and everything, how everything is holding up. Because once you start loading down on that, I imagine that it's only going to compound whatever injuries would happen. So you actually dial it back and you say, hey, let's take a look at what matters here. How are your joints, all of that, your diet, everything. And then, build up on the program. Yeah. The other thing I also want to draw attention to is that you're learning something I'm obsessed with, or you're applying yourself to something I'm obsessed with, which is learning how to replace yourself in business. And that's one of the reasons why I'm, on these different socials, I'm creating a podcast, is because I want to be able to produce, digital assets to replace, myself. So that way I can, either whether it's create consistent income, or at least bring in traffic and attract my ideal client. But it's those digital assets where you learn how to separate your income from your time. And I love that it's like you are packaging like this wealth of knowledge that you have in a step-by-step program. And with the high ticket approach, it sounds like you just have an amazing combination. On that note, Will, I'd love, and the listeners of this podcast would love to know, how are you actually able to live your life now that you've applied yourself to the field, fitness, health and fitness, and you're building out this business? People here, they obviously want to know about, lifestyle business. What is it about your lifestyle that you have now that you're excited about as a result of building your business?
I don't have to go to any type of job. I think the biggest thing is if I want to raise, I literally go look in the mirror. Like, I don't have to go put together some thing saying, look what I did over the last 3 months. Look how I helped your company over the last 3 months. I've been on time every day. I've, whatever. Like, I don't have to go beg somebody for an extra couple dollars an hour so that I can do things for my family. Like, if I need to step my game up, I literally go in the bathroom and have that conversation with myself, and it's like, and that is a power that is scary, but also incredible, because yes, everything is on my shoulders. So if I fail, it's my fault. But if I succeed, it's my fault, So for me, it's like, I don't have to show up to work 10 times in a row to think I can be confident to ask to be taken care of more, Like, if I want more, that just means I haven't learned how to do it yet. So that just means I have to go find someone who can show me how to do it. Most managers and bosses and even owners of the company won't literally give you the secrets, because your effort is paying for their car in the garage, or your effort is paying for the family vacation they're going to take, and you're all of a sudden going to have extra hours on your schedule. Like, Like that's not, I don't have to worry about that at all. Now I do have to not worry, but I do have to be conscious of if I take my foot off the gas, then my car will slow down. Like it's not like I can just like I can be lazy and the company will just keep paying, you know, but at the same time, I will be compensated for the hard work. There is a difference of understanding compounded interest though, because it's not like, you go to a job, hard work in, big money out. Sometimes you go to your business and it's like hard work, hard work in, nothing out, and like, but you have to understand that it's compounded interest. It's not going to be a straight shot up. I've always told my clients is like, if you were to get to the top of your roof, I mean, it's the holiday time. If you were putting up lights around the roof, you could go up a ladder and it'll get you up there quick. But if you fall, you're going all the way down to the ground. Like you're falling completely down, which is why I think it's better to, and not for like putting up your lights, but like in this analogy, using a staircase and thinking about if you're climbing your way to success, the ladder may be quicker. A lot of people say climbing the ladder of success. But the thing I can't stand about that is, if you slip, if you fall, if the ladder breaks, if the ladder slips, you're going down and there's a chance that you won't be able to produce the same because you break something or whatever. Or all of a sudden now you have this crazy fear of falling from such a high height. And that's not even in the analogy anymore. That's really a business. Like you can end up being afraid to go on your own and do things because it wasn't successful. The difference with the staircase is if you fall, you're likely going to catch yourself. But that also means you're allowing yourself to be patient to go step by step instead of just climbing straight up. And that goes to what you were saying about the whole, like people come in like, I want to lose 100 pounds, whatever. And I said, and my response is, well, how are your joints? Like not everybody wants to hear that. And not everybody wants to be on that type of system. A lot of people, we're in a microwave society, man. A lot of people are like, I just want this result right now. And I get it, but there are other trainers for that. There are other coaches for that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But my goal is, like you said, holistic. My goal is to make sure that when you lose that weight, that right knee pain that you've had since a child is gone as well. Because if that's not addressed, like you said, it could get worse. And then all of a sudden you're sitting down, you're not doing your exercises anymore. And then what comes back first? Exactly what you just lost. So it does probably cost me some clients by doing that approach. But at the same time, I'm okay with that, because if they're not willing to dial back and understand how my system works, then we're probably going to have an issue in the future as well. Because if they're not willing to be a student, why am I going out of my way to teach? There's plenty of other teachers that will do it because they don't have that. They're not focused on that. They're just like, let's get these transformation photos, let's show these numbers, and let's just push all this stuff out there. But as a massage therapist and a rehab tech, the amount of people that have come to me for rehab off of something that happened from their trainer or in their program, it is ridiculous. I mean, I know people probably heard of CrossFit, and people may not like this statement, but when I was a massage therapist and I was trying to get my name out there, I would post up in a CrossFit studio with my massage chair and everybody would line up because they were all hurt. They were all in pain. And I was like, this is gold. I'm going to pull up these places and now all of a sudden 10 years later, there's a whole lot more mobility training. They have mobility days, and because they were realizing it was like, wow, we're putting way too much inflammation in these people's joints. And they're just they're falling, they're dropping like flies, and they're just not coming back. So I happened to see that early on. And it just, now whenever I work with anybody, my biggest fear is not even fear, actually, because I know it's not going to happen. My biggest thought is, could they get injured? How would they get it? What would be the likely way that they get injured? And how can I attack that first? So if somebody does have a knee issue, I know, okay, we got to attack that first, because there's a lot of leg type stuff in weight loss, cardio, squats, lunges. There's just so much stuff that uses that joint. So are we is that person really going to be confident if they're trying to fight through pain the whole time? You know, and it brings me thinking about business. You know, it's like if the coach doesn't see where the weakest link is, it doesn't matter how strong the rest of the chain gets. This is eventually going to break. And so that is the magic of having a coach and having a qualified coach, because they can see that. It's not like, you know, it's not like they got to just trial and error to see if they find it. It's more of just like they've been through it so many times. You know, I can put myself in these shoes. I've been through rehab so much that people can just, like someone today mentioned real quick, they were like, I'm feeling something on the inside of my knee. And I was able to just spit it all out, you know, like, and just, and then I got a message back within a half an hour. I was like, that was so amazing. Like, I've already felt relief. I'm going up the steps. It's gone, you know, and even that, hearing that told me, okay, so this is something that's onset. This is something that's coming on. You gave me the call in the morning. This helps. So that means when you're sleeping, there's something wrong. So maybe what you're doing before bed, we have to add this. And it's like, but it's only because I've been in the world for so long that I can hear a quick thing. But it's like Dan, who's my coach, I can tell him one thing I'm struggling on and he'll give me an answer in 5 seconds. Be like, oh yeah, you just got to do this. You know, but if I wasn't willing to be that student, I would have never asked, and I would just be not, it just wouldn't work. You know, like we were mentioning, trying to get that square peg into the circular hole and thinking about, well, maybe if I get a better hammer, I'll make it happen. And it's like, okay, no, you know, like just change, go to the other hole. Like, and it's like, that's why I need a coach. And that's why I love to coach, because, you know, I can help them understand. It's like, you know, you're still in first gear. You're trying to go up to 45, 50 miles an hour. Like, you have to shift. And it's getting around people like that is what was the magic for me, so that now I can be that magic for other people.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it sounds like it, man, where, I mean, even just like a client can say, hey, I'm experiencing this pain, and then just bloop, 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 you give them that answer.
Yeah.
And with 30 minutes, man, they're good to go. But it doesn't stop there. You go back and like, okay, where's, you know, backtrack it here. And you start looking at, okay, what are the root causes? And then you start going after that. Dude, talk about holistic approaches right there. That's awesome.
Right.
Will,
Awesome.
I want to bring people's attention to this too. Since you mentioned Dan again, and that fact that he's your coach. Now, he's your coach in like building your own coaching business. Is that right?
Right. Yep.
Okay. And you're his fitness and holistic training coach.
Right. Correct. Yeah.
Right. So you build this amazing symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I say all that to say this. It's like for the listeners of the podcast, and then if you're seeing this on YouTube also, if you want to check out a recent case study of Will working with Dan Henry, who's he's an internet marketer, and you want to check out this case study and see how Dan, who's an 8-figure entrepreneur, he literally went from dad bod to ripped in 6 months. And it's a case study. It's a video case study. And I love the title of it, How to Rapidly Transform Your Body in 6 months by Eating More and Working Out Less. Yeah. So obviously, Will, you're addressing some major misconception here. Do you mind kind of breaking that down? Because when I first read that, I was like, there's no way that's right. But obviously it's working.
Yeah. It's why, and I love it. That's what everyone's like, wait a second, what? It's like, can you really lose weight by eating more and working out less? And the whole idea about this is, first, when it comes to eating more, a lot of people think that in order to lose weight, I've got to starve myself. I've got to stop eating as much. And there is a difference between calorie surplus and calorie deficit. But the idea of starving yourself to lose weight, the only reason the scale shows a difference is because you're likely losing muscle mass. And muscle mass is much heavier and weighs more than fat. So if you put yourself in a position, we call it starvation mode. If you put yourself in this starvation mode, the body needs these proteins. And so if you're not going to put the fuel in, your body's just going to take it from itself. You know, you're made up of delicious protein. You're made up of what the body needs. So, you know, I use the example of like a car. If you run out of gas, your car will shut down. The car is not going to then start pulling material from the tires to burn as fuel. It's not made like that. But our bodies will do that. You'll go empty on fuel, and the body will literally start metabolizing itself to feed itself. And so it's not exactly like this, but I like this analogy is like if you train, upper body like crazy one day and don't fuel yourself after it, your body's going to pull from the lower body to then heal the upper body. And it's a little bit more detailed that on the science of it, but think about how if the body is starving, where is it going to get the fuel or anything to rebuild what you just broke down? Because and if you don't know, building muscle, you have to tear it down in order for it to come back stronger. But it won't come back stronger if you're not putting that cement, those building blocks in to then be stronger, So that's the key that's the key with the eating more is that so many people think I just need to starve myself. Like I got this super hungry feeling in the middle of my workout. Yeah, I must be burning fat. It's like, no, your body is screaming to you saying, we're sending this message to the brain. You weren't listening. Now we're going to send it even louder. Now you should hear your stomach growling. Like it's literally a fuel situation. And so many times, likely 100% of the time, when I'm writing meal plans, people aren't eating enough, So just to kind of give some people a tidbit on that, what I do is I look at what is the amount of calories that this person is burning in a day. So if like kind of consider it like tickets, right? Like you're going to burn this, you're going to use this many tickets in a day, but you don't get like, you need to put those tickets in. You need to get those tickets at the beginning of the day in order to be able to use them at the fair or whatever, so if you're constantly burning and using a certain amount of calories, but you're not putting that back in, your body's in what we call deficit. And so deficit makes it very difficult for you to build muscle. And if it's in too much deficit, it can be very difficult for you to even lose fat. Because if you think about what is like your muscles made up of proteins and delicious nutrients, and then fat is made up of nothing, it's adipose tissue. So what your body is going to do is store that for like, just in case we fully starve, that's what's going to go after last. But it's going to go after your precious muscle first. So many times it's like people aren't eating enough before the workout, or people aren't putting in enough fuel after the workout, or people just aren't eating enough in general. And in Dan's situation, all of a sudden he started eating more than he ever had, and he was getting leaner. And it's like, it's that mind explodes. Like, what? Like, well, how is this possible? Now, this isn't like eating more donuts, this is like actually looking at macro, understanding what proteins do for you, what carbs do for you, what fats can do for you. I'm not one that tells people like, you can't do no carbs. It's more about teaching them how and what carbs do for the body. And then once you understand, like for example, if you have a Ferrari and you put in the regular gas, in no way are you going to get the same. It'll run, but in no way are you going to get the same performance. And so what I love putting people through is giving them that chance. Like, here's your Ferrari of a body, and here's a ton of junk fuel. Now go work out. And then we come back and then we like, here's the premium fuel. Now go work out. And it's like, it's a whole different thing, man. It really is. Like, just in the workout is crazy, but then in life is crazy. Like, you're just a lot different. The mind is way sharper. I could go on with that one forever, but the other one is working out less. And the reason I put that in there is because so many people spend so many hours in the gym, years sometimes, and have no results. And some people will be like, you need to work out 6 days a week to get results. You need to do 7 days a week of effort to get results. And because of Dan's schedule, being an 8-figure entrepreneur doesn't sound like you have a ton of time, so he wasn't going to be able to do 2 hours in the gym 6 days a week, so his program started out, actually still is to this day, about an hour and a half, but 3 days a week. And then of course he's got my course to be able to follow the flexibility stuff and what he needs to do on the other days. But actual strength training is now actually up to 4 days because we're just adding a little bit more for spot training. But he was able to make his transformation just doing that off of 3 days. But it's not like 3 days of random stuff. We put it together so that it made sense. Certain weeks we're doing certain things. Other weeks we're doing other things. Some weeks are more about endurance. Other weeks are more about hypertrophy and strength training and power. And it just, that's for me to figure out. That's not for him to understand. He just needs to follow the plan. But what happened is he started working out less, meaning less days, less times in the gym than he ever had. He started eating more than he ever had, and he gained his muscle and he lost fat. And most people think you can only gain muscle or you can only lose fat. You have to do one or the other. But that's when you're not really focused on what you're doing. Like if you really break down what the macronutrients are doing for your body, if you really break down what the exercise are doing for your body, you can develop a system that helps you do both at the same time, trim fat and build muscle. Now, for those who are looking to step on stage, I've done competitions in the past. That's different because you're looking to go to the extreme. You're trying to get as much muscle as possible for a certain amount of time of the year. And then when it comes to showtime, you're literally cutting down to like my first show, I got down to 5%. And then I was able to get down to 3%. And you're not, mentally, like you're not the nicest person, like you're starving yourself, like you're close to death, like you just happen to have a bunch of muscle at the same time. So like it takes a certain mindset to do that. And not everybody's trying to do that, And even when I've met and talked to people who want to get into bodybuilding, when I speak on what it really takes, they realize like, maybe this should just be a hobby or something I do for fun because it is the extreme. But for those who taking care of their family is the stage, or taking care of their business is the stage, you don't have to think about the extremes of both. You just have to figure out how to make it work with what you're already doing. Because yes, his health is important, but whether or not we hit the gym on a Monday is not more important than the success of his business. So I still had to make sure that his business was priority, but health was a very close second, mainly because I needed him to stay focused and really want to continue growing his business. But at the end of the day, it's that compounded interest. Health ends up taking the priority over because so many people, we won't say so many, but there are people out there who literally give away their health in order to make their wealth. But what can happen is they can literally spend all their wealth later in life trying to regain their health. Just sitting in a hospital for a week costs thousands of dollars that could have taken years to make, or could have taken you could have lost a lot of time with your family to build that. And then when you think it's time to enjoy life with your family, you can't even be there with them. I know a lot of people right now who are, even myself, building the wealth to then share with the family so that they can continue it. But if you're the one that built it and they're just there to enjoy it, if you all of a sudden are gone, what's going to happen? Like, is it going to compound? Is it going to continue to grow, or is it going to slowly diminish? And that's what I would never want to put all this effort in to help and build my family's legacy and then either pass on or lose my ability. Like diabetes right now can take a lot of your ability away from you. And many times diabetes can be avoided, but then also it can be reversed. There are so many people who have gotten that out of their lifestyle just by changing their life habits, which then change their family's future forever, because all of a sudden now you're still here. We're definitely not guaranteed a certain amount of time in life. But if I look at it like, if you are going to be here for a certain amount of time, how would you like to live that quality? The whole thing, like you only live once, like, okay, I get it. But it's like, you can't be out here living reckless, like it doesn't make sense. Like people are like, oh, I'm just going to do this now. I was like, well, what if you're still here next year? Or what if you're still here 20, 30 years from now? Like, do you want to still be going through this rat race? And I don't want to get too off on the topic there. I remember we we're talking about eating more and working out less. It really it's almost as if like in business, you're just like doing the wrong techniques and you're thinking like, if I just do this more, it'll finally work. whereas a coach comes in and is like, well, you shouldn't even be doing that anyway. Like, you're trying to make a right turn. Why do you keep turning the steering wheel to the left? And it's like that. It's just like, you got to kind of, health is that way as well. So I know that kind of went on for a little bit there, but it's really, I guess that's the main thing I'm saying is like, when you learn the type of exercises to do, you don't have to just be doing random stuff. In business, when it comes to building your life, you don't have to just get a random book and think like, okay, I'm just going to take this tactic because it worked for Robert Kiyosaki and I'm just going to do it and do it and do it and do it and do it. And it may not even be the right path or direction for you. Maybe the idea of the tactic is good for what you need to do, but you got to learn how to fine tune it so that it's towards you. I think about the focus on the camera. I don't know about you, but like, I've recorded videos and I get back and watch it again and it's blurry because I didn't just tweak it a little bit to make it clear. And it's like, man, like, wasted time. Think about how many people are wasting time. We waste money, but really think about how many people are wasting time. And that's what we're trying to gain back through this whole thing.
Wow. Yeah, and I totally agree where it's just like having that holistic approach with health first, you'll be able to keep your health, your time, and your wealth, if you play it right. And
right.
Yeah, I look over a lot of my parents who have not made some of the best lifestyle choices, and I can see where, because they didn't invest really in making sure that they had their health and lifestyle habits dialed in, and it's not complicated and it's not difficult either. As a single guy, no kids, I don't have much room to talk, but I also know that looking at it from a second lens, from an outsider's perspective, I can see that the decisions that they made in the past, whether it was, to have those 2-3 beers a night, high sugar diet, stuff like that, where now, 20 years down the road, they have more hospital bills. They're spending more time on the road going to the hospital, and they feel like they have to constantly medicate to offset what they could have prevented years prior. And that thought scares me because I want my parents to be around to be grandparents,
Right.
and I want to be around for my, kids and grandkids to help build that legacy. And I love how you keep this in like the big picture perspective. It's not just about, building mass, losing weight. It's about regaining, your own confidence, seeing yourself, as that transformed self, and living that holistic lifestyle and building that legacy from it. I want to wrap up here, after just a few thoughts, but Will, as you think about the audience who, again, aspiring entrepreneurs looking to build their lifestyle business, the key mindset and the methods, what would be like maybe the 2 or 3 things that you would encourage them on as they get started in their journey?
First thing that pops up is get around an education system, get around a coach. If I just had this conversation with somebody who's looking to open up her own massage studio. And she was telling me how much money she has to be able to purchase, stuff to make it look nice and all that stuff, and my first question was, well, how much have you invested in like a marketing program or learning how to get yourself out there? She was like, none. I was like, okay, how much have you invested in learning the actual art of massage? And she went to a regular massage school. When I went, it was like 15, 16 grand, something like that. So a considerable amount. And so my point was, it's like, okay, so you can invest this much into the education, but we're not investing in how to then communicate the education. Like, you can know all this stuff, but if you don't know how to meet people, how to connect with people, how are they even going to find you? And so learning how to invest in yourself, I think is the very most important thing, because we'll very quickly invest into the education side, but then learning how to then convey that message needs to happen. I think of trainers, because it's my industry. So many trainers can talk to a client like they're reading out of a textbook, but the client didn't go to the same classes. So why would they even understand that stuff? Like, you have to learn how to communicate it. And that's the same in every industry, So I think that the biggest thing is learning how to get your message out. And that comes from a coach that knows how to do it. So I think that definitely getting some education, and then it does come down to education again, but learning how to fill the void spots of the day with things that are going to build you up. So you're driving somewhere, that's 30 minutes, right? That can be 30 minutes spent listening to nothing and meditating, which is good sometimes. It can also be spent listening to your favorite music and song, which is good sometimes. Or it could also be spent listening to tapes that are specifically talking about the struggles that you're going through right now, which is also good sometimes. And so I'm not saying just do that. I'm saying find a balance, because you do want to enjoy your life at the same time. Many of us entrepreneurs, and we mentioned it slightly before we got on, can get into that burnout stage. So finding ways to avoid the burnout while also still furthering your mental capacity is huge. And I think that the best time for that is in these void spots. When I'm cooking, I remember for years I would just blast music. Now I look for podcasts, and I got voices blasting in the apartment the whole time I'm cooking and stuff. It's like, I like to think about it as like my neighbors are learning too, because I'm cranking that thing up, and it's podcast for me. It's not really fitness stuff anymore. It's more about, it's all mindset stuff. It's all communication skills. It's all belief in yourself. Like you may have watched this and thought like I have crazy belief in myself, but I personally put myself in situations like when it comes to my goals, I set my goals high enough that I really have to stretch in order to get them. I'm not a low hanging fruit type of person. So that also means that there are months where I don't hit my goal. And that doesn't mean I'm not successful. That means that I set the goal at a point that's really going to stretch me. Now, I want to also put a thing in there is like, don't make goals that are out of reach, like completely out of reach. Like it does have to make sense. But it's kind of like, it's like if you can reach a goal, like put it a little bit higher. Because in order for you to attain it, you're going to have to grow. You're going to have to change, which is then going to make the goal a little bit higher the next month. And so I think a big point there is finding ways to challenge yourself, which are within your means, but then also are definitely going to make you sit there and think like, okay, I set this goal. What do I have to do to get to this goal? Instead of like, it'll just happen. Like my goal was never just to pay in the beginning, it was just to pay my bills. But now, it's more about like, okay, I want to do something in 6 months for some people in my family. What do I have to do to make this thing happen? And so then I got to break it down piece by piece. It's that whole analogy of like, if you had to eat an elephant, how would you eat it? Literally piece by piece. And that just brings the analogy in my mind of the guy, I can't remember exactly where he was, but he ate an entire bicycle. And people were like, how the heck did you eat a bicycle? You can imagine trying to chew through tires, then try to imagine chewing through the frame. And literally what he did was he broke it down, melted it down, and ate that whole thing piece by piece. It's like, and that's how we got to attack this whole thing. So I think a big thing for people is set your goals, but then also dial back and look at it and get bite-sized pieces, because otherwise it's just going to be too daunting. But those bite-sized pieces should also be a challenge. It just shouldn't be, again, that low-hanging fruit. Because I don't think you'll build your confidence as much when you're just skating through. Like there's something about putting yourself in a position that you might not be successful, because you then have to do something you have to change in order to be successful. It's like, I look at the whole thing. People are on stage are like, you can do it. You can get up here too. And I actually think that's a lie. I think what needs to be said is you have the ability to do it. But the reason you're down there and I'm up here is because you haven't changed yet. You haven't started. You haven't sacrificed. You haven't figured it out yet. So the you are now can't do it. That's the truth. But the you are now has the ability. So that means that you need to now get yourself in the right rooms, get yourself with the right coaches to then become the person that can do it. And I think that the whole thing about becoming someone is really how we all grow. And if someone's out here trying to make an impact, you know, nobody's interested in your easy success story because no one's going to relate to it. They want to hear the person whose lights were cut off. You know, they want to hear the person who like for example, I remember one of my sales, I had like my electric was cut off and it was hot and I was sweating. I couldn't go to sleep because I was sweating so much. So I was up online talking to people and, you know, made a set and all of a sudden things were good, but I had to be uncomfortable in order to make it happen, you know, and I'm not in a situation, you know, thank God from all the work that I've been putting in, but then also I can't say, you know, not thank me as well, because I made it happen. But now there are new challenges that it's like, okay, if I really want to make an impact, it can't be about me anymore. It's got to be about other people. You know, kind of moving off a little bit on a tangent there because I'm thinking about some goals I have right now. But it's like you really got to stretch yourself, make yourself sweat a little bit and be okay with it. It'll build confidence. Confidence just doesn't come out of nowhere. Confidence comes from competence in whatever it is that you do. You know, the better you get at it, the more you learn it, the more competent you become of the skill, the more confident you will be in performing the skill. And that's something I had to learn. That's a little tidbit from my coach. I'll give him credibility for that one, but the more I say it, I'm going to take it eventually. But it really is like, build that confidence, man.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, man. That's like we're going in a mine shaft here and we're just plucking gems. This is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, as I look back over my own journey and you know, think about everything from when I started with that MLM back in 2017 and you know, where you mentioned, you know, not being afraid to invest in yourself and really getting around the people who are going to stretch you, you know, and challenge you to reach those new goals. I feel like my willingness to invest that much and really having so little, because there were times where I didn't have a job. There were times I went nearly broke buying products, traveling, stuff like that, just to keep, you know, my numbers up and to stay associating. I think having those experiences where I was like, I was proving to myself that I believe in myself and this opportunity enough that I'm willing to, you know, let myself become uncomfortable. And like, for example, like when I was living out of my Jeep for 10 months to save money, instead of having an apartment, I would buy products instead. Just showing it's just like, I'm willing to go through the hard times because I believe in it and it forces me to take action. And I love that you mentioned this too, Will. It's like you know, investing in yourself so you have the skill, but being able to market yourself also. Um, I do you have this book we picked up from FHL, Magnetic Marketing?
Yes, I do. Right next to
Okay,
me.
perfect.
I changed my
This is
battery.
not a plug for magnetic marketing per se, but what it is, it's a great opportunity to learn. It's like, okay, you might be in business for yourself, whether you're, you know, a plumber, a painter, or, you know, an underwater basket weaver. Learning how to market yourself is one of the most valuable skills that you'll develop in business, because one of the greatest misconceptions that I continue to read about is that you might have the expertise, you might be the best in the world, but if you can't get anybody to come in those doors, you might as well close up shop. And what Will is mentioning here, guys, is that his willingness to really stay consistent in his, you know, prior business, MLM, and then seeing that consistency transfer where he's now able to go out and cold contact, really just build, you know, new relationships is really what it is what is really providing, you know, like almost like a bloodstream, a consistent bloodstream into his business. So I would definitely encourage you guys to go back and replay the last 5 minutes of this podcast. And Will, I appreciate that you've been willing to share so much of your time. And I actually think there's going to be an episode 2 coming in about 6 months or so, if you're willing,
Awesome.
because
Yep.
I can tell it's like, okay, you have, the mindset in place, the business in place, you have the lifestyle in place. I feel like this is a journey that people are going to want to be able to jump onto and follow as time passes. Um, Thank you again. And real quick, we have a couple places where you can find, follow, and continue to grow with Will. Will, where's the best place for someone to get in touch with you if they want to look at, who you are, what content that you have, and see if they want to work with you?
Definitely. So I use my primary use right now is through Facebook and then also Instagram as well. If you if to make it easy, if you want to find the Facebook group that I've put together, it's myersimpactteam.com. And that's just still something I'm putting together. And then of course, Will Myers Jr. through Facebook, and then also Instagram on Myers Impact. And I am still building my online profiles. I know there are some people out there with tons and tons of followers, but let me just tell you straight up that your follower count does not directly equate to the amount of money in your bank account. And I'm still learning that whole thing. Like I said, like I love meeting people in person and connecting, and I can go into a grocery store and come out with 10 friends. But to learn how to network online is an area I've challenged myself in. So I have coaches helping me build that stuff as well. So if you pop on any of those, you'll see, I'm still growing too. I'm posting stuff daily. I'm trying different things out. I've learned that people like looking at my food pictures more than my exercise pictures. So I've started putting much more of that stuff up, and I'm learning with that as well, so I invite anybody into the community and to watch the process, because I'm changing every single month with it. And I love it because I know I can always fall back on my ability to communicate and do it in person. But the whole scalable thing, that word scale, the phrase scale your business, has to come from learning how to duplicate way better than just doing things in person. And I mean, there's so many businesses you can scale, but in a health business, I literally can only give so many hours of my day away. So I've learned, there's so many more people online, of course, and I'm still learning the ability and tactics to communicate with everybody.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's, that is so true, especially as the digital landscape continues to change in the context of every platform, has its own nuances. Um, it is consistently surprising to me what actually, works and what actually attracts people. But I'll tell you what, guys, like this, we're recording this at the end of December of 2021. I met Will in September of 2021, 3 months ago. And I tell you what, guys, I've been looking forward to this interview for 3 months. And sometimes I was wondering if it was going to happen or not, but I was like, this guy's building something big. Like, if someone goes dark for that long, like they're going to resurface with something amazing. And you didn't disappoint, my friend. Thank you so much again for coming on the show and really sharing not only your wisdom, but some of the key insights along the way, staying consistent, surrounding yourself with people who are going to grow you and stretch you, setting your own goals higher so you can grow in the process, and having a holistic approach as you build your life and your business. For all you listeners at home or in the car, learn how to fill those gaps, possibly with this podcast too. But thank you so much for joining us again this week. You awesome listeners. I hope you continue to enjoy yourself, grow, and make progress in your journeys. I look forward to seeing you next week. Oh my goodness, folks. I hope you enjoyed this conversation even more than I did. I'd love to hear what insights you took away from this episode, as well as how I can improve the podcast for you. Now, if you're an aspiring entrepreneur and you love the idea of building your own lifestyle business, but you don't know where to start, can I share a little secret with you? You have to answer these 5 key questions. How do I want to live? Why do I want to live that way? What business will get me there? Who do I need to become to achieve it? And who do I have on my team that is willing to help me? Now, if you want to save yourself possibly months or even years and countless thousands of dollars, and finally get on the path to building your lifestyle business, I have some good news for you. I've created the 5-day Entrepreneur Incubator Challenge to help aspiring entrepreneurs just like you find their best fit business opportunity, and answer these 5 key questions in just 5 days. Now, if you are my own business partner, I would tell you this: enroll in the challenge today, because every week I am increasing the price of the challenge. So if you want to avoid the #1 mistake of procrastinating, enroll in the 5-day Entrepreneur Incubator Challenge today at pillarsoffreedom.com/challenge. Thank you, and looking forward to seeing you on the other side.